I'll just point out one thing, but as an introduction to maybe the environmental effects of hydraulic fracturing. I would claim that the one single industry practice, and I'm not talking about just the oil and gas industry, all industries in the United States, the one thing that has done the most to benefit our climate, our environment, is hydraulic fracturing. And that's because the tremendous success in developing natural gas in particular in this country has enabled us to displace a lot of coal-powered electric generation with natural gas-powered, and it's been environmentally a huge benefit. The CO2 emissions in this country have been declining for about 15 years, and it's largely attributable to more natural gas use and less coal consumption. Better gasoline efficiency contributes as well, but natural gas has been a huge environmental benefit to this country.
Well,
it's due to hydraulic fracturing.
Since you are here, and I think you can answer this question very well, so I'm going to direct this question to you. How about hydraulic fracturing and it with the material it is used to fracture contaminating the water tables? If I am a farmer and use a well to get drinking water, how safe would I be, or how seriously can you tell me I have nothing to worry? So explain that a little.
Let me help Dr. Hill answer that question. When it comes to well permitting, those permits are all submitted to regulatory agencies within the state and of course the federal government in some cases when dealing with BLM or federal waters. You know, regulators such as the Texas Railroad Commission, Oklahoma Corporation Commission, and the Department of Environmental Quality in Louisiana and others within other states basically set up the guidelines for groundwater coverage and cementation. In other words, casing strings that are wells that are permitted, spudded, and drilled through groundwater formations, and they then cemented. Those guidelines and rules are submitted by the regulators. Those rules are in place to protect the groundwaters, the groundwater environment. With respect to cementation, testing of casings, testing of the casing shoe, those are measures that are in place that basically simulate any type of intrusion or to prevent any type of intrusion into the groundwater environment. So when it comes to hydraulic fracturing, some of the same things are employed. For example, beyond a surface string of casing, an intermediate string of casing may be required as an extra protection measure to isolate further deeper into the well bore. And then, you know, cement bond logs, casing test, casing shoe test, those same types of diagnostics are employed. And then of course, when it comes down to setting the production casing, completion and fracturing, naturally that occurs again. So the industry has been very cognizant for a number of decades about groundwater protection. Some do it better than others. Sometimes there are things that happen that cause issues. But I would say as a role, our industry between API and IADC and the RPs that API puts forth, combined with IADC and our regulators, we as an industry come together to basically prevent best we can any type of groundwater contamination. That helps the conversation.
Yeah, I would add to that, Larry. You know, the scenario that Dr. Hasan had kind of shared was the farmer concerned about his groundwater. I live in the hill country of Texas. I've got a vested interest in protecting that aquifer, the Edwards Aquifer. We live in the areas where we work. Everybody on this call is probably within close proximity to some sort of well, oil and gas well. So we all have a vested interest in protecting the resource. And I think we have to hold each other accountable, to Larry's point, whether it's regulatory or his peers, whenever we've got some bad actors. And if we make a mistake, own up, let's fix it. Let's address it. Let's not try to hide it. But I think we miss a real opportunity having this discussion with other people that we live, our families live. My family drinks that water from a well that's in close proximity to oil and gas well. And I'm comfortable with it. We grew up around oil and gas wells. Probably a lot of folks on here have, but I think statistically it's a very safe practice.
And
I would
another
also add,
related,
you know, the industry's taken steps to be transparent in their, you know, in the fluids. You know, there's a website, frackfocus.org, that's out there where companies share what fluids are being used. There's also a lot of information on groundwater protection. So, you know, encourage folks to check it out if you haven't.
good point, good point.
Street, I'll comment. Sorry, I dropped off for a second. The 3 quick points. One is fracture fluids are not, you know, some kind of glow in the dark toxic formulation. It's 99% water and sand. The polymer that's used most commonly is a common food additive. It's, you know, guar polymer that comes from a plant and you can eat it. So it's not all that toxic a material to start with. There are really the only documented contaminations of groundwater from hydraulic fracturing practices that I'm aware of were surface spills, and which, you know, you should obviously try to avoid. But there have been a few spills that some fracture fluid got into a creek or something. So that needs to be, you know, the surface handling needs to be done carefully. But basically, hydraulic fractures are typically at least 6,000 feet deep in the ground, and aquifers are seldom more than about 1,500 feet. And so, you know, the notion that fractures extend up into aquifers is just a myth. It's physically not possible. So it's just, you know, a very poor completion, like Larry was talking about, is about the only way that the well operation during fracturing could possibly affect aquifers, and there's really no evidence that that's ever happened. So in general, be careful handling the fluids on the surface, and there won't be any harm to the groundwater.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the composition of the fracturing fluid. People should know that, and I'm pretty sure most people don't. Thing is it?
Oh, I just to kind of go back to the comments about hydraulic fracturing real quickly. We have a saying in the well control business: trust but verify. And I guess we are all in this panel, and everyone listening is part of the general public. And I would encourage the general public on hydraulic fracturing to trust but verify. And one of the ways that we verify what's going on with hydraulic fracturing and the possible dangers it imposes to groundwater contamination or to people as a whole is an industry. I think we could probably do somewhat of a better job of informing the public about hydraulic fracturing. We hear a lot about it on the news media, but there again, I get back to the adage, trust but verify. I wouldn't, I guess, simply put, don't believe everything you hear.